Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Danu, and thank you for joining us on Daily Mirror. Today, we are going to be speaking about an interesting and a topic that's quite timely. This is in regard to the Mrs. World pageant, where Sri Lanka represented as well. Now, Mrs. Sri Lanka has been a bit of a controversial topic for quite some time over the crown snatching, then uncrowning, and now a new winner going to represent Sri Lanka, and then having a very controversial conversation with another online interview which has gone viral. Now, today, to clear the air about all of this and bring an insight to what exactly took place at the Mrs. World pageant, and also what is this pageant all about, what does it stand for, is what we're going to speak about. Today, I'm going to be speaking to Tana Johnson, who is the Vice President and the pageant coordinator for Mrs. World. Now, she's joining us. It's early in the morning for her, and I feel really bad, but I think it's ideal for us to speak about it and clear the air. So let's welcome Tana. I hope there you go. Good
Hi,
evening to you.
Danu.
It's good morning for you, but it's good evening
Yes.
for us.
Good morning. Got some coffee.
Yeah, and that's your coffee. Brilliant. Let me just find a way as to why this is moving around. There you go. All right. So, Tana, thank you so very much for joining me today. It's absolutely a pleasure to have you with us.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks to you for having me.
And it has been a bit of a roller coaster ride for us when it comes to the Mrs. World pageant. Sri Lanka has been highlighted by you guys many a times. Just want to set the record straight. All of us are normal. And we love representing our country, and we are very proud to be Sri Lankans. So to start things off, I would like to ask you, tell me about the Mrs. World pageant and what it stands for.
Well, the Mrs. World pageant was started by Mrs. Elaine Marmel and David Marmel, the owners of the Mrs. America pageant. And after they took over the Mrs. America pageant, David had an idea of knowing that married women are not just in the United States. And so they wanted to honor married women globally. So they came up with the Mrs. World pageant. And that began in 1984. And actually, it was first titled Woman of the World, and your mayor of Colombo, Mrs. Rosie, was the actual first winner of Women of the World, which then became Mrs. World. And basically it was to honor and empower married women all across the globe. We want to show how fantastic and wonderful married women are, not just here in the United States, but globally. And they're fantastic. We are fantastic.
That's amazing. Well, it's a pageant that's very close to our hearts because we did have a winner, and it has been something that has been a benchmark for a lot of ladies who have represented many pageants across the platforms to achieve and to also, maintain standards. Just want to speak to you a little bit about the controversy that is surrounding the current Mrs. Sri Lanka for Mrs. World, Pushpika De Silva, who was there at the pageant a few days ago. So I want to speak to you, number one, what was your first impression about Pushpika?
She's tall, very tall.
Yeah.
Tall and lovely. Pictures and online videos do not do a woman justice. They're completely captivating once you meet them in person. And Pushpika was like that for me. I really like her. She's very eloquent and holds herself very well, but yet she has a playful side that she'll let you in to see every now and again. So I was captivated by her. She's very charming, and super tall, which is, lovely.
That is true. And I must say, in the running to the pageant, there's been a lot of hard work that has gone in. She looked brilliant when she represented our country. She was very well put together, and I thought that's something for us to be proud of. But yet, recently, there was an interview that came out on social media, which really did tarnish the Mrs. World organizers and also the judges who were there. So this is an interview done especially to clear this. And also, as a media organization, this print publication has supported this pageant. We have once been the official media partners for it. So it is also it's our duty to inform our readers and our followers as to what exactly took place. And that is where you come in. And we're so grateful that you took the time to speak to us. All right. Now, let's speak about Pushpika's placement. You know, there's been a huge controversy about the fact that she was placed at top 4, but whether she was top 6. What, is there a top 4?
No, no. This is how the judging or the placement criteria happens. So out of the 41 ladies that competed, they do their preliminaries, they're judged on their evening gown, their swimsuit, and their interview. The interview was 50% of the score. And then through that, in the preliminary competition, a top 15 is derived. Once you make the top 15, all your previous scores or mentions, because they're not number scores, they're just, well, it's on a mention system, so we mention the country. And so all the mentions are erased, and everyone starts from a clean slate. So after the top 15, you are given a brand new number, and that is your production number for placement for modeling on the stage. You go through that scenario, you do your modeling in your evening gown and your swimsuit, and then from there, the judges will decide a top 6. And then at the top 6, your scores are wiped clean again, and then you go from solely judging from clean slate, mentionables right there. The top 6 get asked a question. Based on that question, your poise, your personality, everything else that you've been judged on in your evening gown and how you respond to things are now taken in consideration at that point. And then you go to the top 3. Right. So there is never a 4th, 5th, or 6th placement at all. It simply goes to top 6, top 3. Once you're at top 3, you have another on-stage question, and that is when the only number placement as how well you did in the pageant happens. 1st, 2nd, or 3rd.
Brilliant. Now, there has been an audio clip that was circulated with the mayor of Colombo giving advice to Pushpika about where her placement is and also how she needs to address the press about her title that she has, or like the placement she has got at the international pageant. But I was also told that the mayor of Colombo, Lanka, did not know that the placements of 4th, 5th, and 6th has been scrapped 15 years ago.
Right. You know, those changed a few years ago. Well, about 15 years ago, just because, you know, following the trends of pageantry, especially if it's a lot easier to have women place in the top 6 rather than say, well, I was 5th or I was 4th. It was more of a positive and notation that those ladies made it in top 6 and not a number designation. But I believe that in just way trends changed, it was a lot easier to do production wise and for the organization.
Because the placement that Pushpika was actually placed at number 4 was a news that was carried forward by Pushpika's manager, saying that the judges had spoken to him about it, and that was eventually carried on to the Sri Lankan community was there. Do you think the judges will actually share their results or speak about their scoring to a manager or to a contestant's friend or a partner who has come there?
No, I don't. I believe that, you know, we've had several judges at multiple competitions get confronted by contestants asking questions, what they could do better, or why didn't you vote for me, those sorts of things. And, you know, we tell our judges that you are free to discuss what you would like if you are comfortable, but the majority of them are not comfortable with saying, well, I had you as my winner, or I didn't have you as my winner. They're going to be cordial and professional and say, you were in my top, which Pushpika was in the top. She was in the top 6. So whether they say that they had her as the official winner, I really don't see any judge saying that, just because then it would put the judge in, you know, conflict with all the other contestants. Well, if you told this lady you had her at your top, but you told me the same, what is true? Are you lying? What is factual? What is not? So
the credibility
nobody has the judges' scores at all. So nobody is allowed to say, once the judges write their score down, or their mention is what it's called, and they sign their judge's file, but that goes directly to our auditor, and then it goes directly to the hands of Elaine Marmel. Nobody sees them, nothing. They are confidential.
Right. Want to also ask you, now these questions are based on the accusations or the conversation that took place in the recent interview. Was Rosie Serenayake invited by the pageant to be at this show?
Yes. Yeah, she was. She was invited to come to the Mrs. World pageant as our VIP guest.
Brilliant. Was her payment in terms of her travel expense, lodging, was all covered by the pageant body?
Yeah,
or was it covered by her?
No, the Mrs. World organization, we sent a limo to pick her up from the airport. We covered her hotel and expenses at the Westgate. She was there as our guest. So
Brilliant.
it was
It's something that we
honor.
wanted to ask. Yeah. So her flight ticket, her travel expense, and also her stay in Las Vegas was an invite only VIP standard given by the Mrs. World organization.
Yep. Yes. And we did send a letter of, request to the Sri Lankan consulate for an invite for a visa. So
brilliant. That's amazing. So these questions I'm asking for the only reason so many things up in the air. That's why. All right. So there was a lady called there was a lady called Libby Crawford who tweeted about the fact that there's an official statement. There is no fourth place. Please correct this false information. Give me an insight to that particular tweet that went all over.
I just saw this tweet maybe a day or two ago, and I don't know much about Libby Crawford. The only thing I know is that she was a former employee or volunteer with the Mrs. World organization, but she has left the organization probably around 5 years ago, I believe. So right. Her comments, we don't authorize any comments. She doesn't speak on behalf of the Mrs. World organization at all. She doesn't have any insight to how things are right now. Since she has left, things have changed. It may not be the same. So her comments regarding Pushpika and her husband or her marriage honestly are out of line. I don't agree with them. She doesn't speak on our behalf.
Right. Coming to marriage, as this is Mrs. World, so I'm sure you will know when the local pageant happened, we had a crown fight.
Yeah.
There was a crown moment that went global to a point that even entertainment e-news across the world it was spoken about. And at one point on Facebook we were the most trending country. So I want to ask you, in terms of the rules of being a part of the Mrs. World pageant, should you be married and living with your husband and having a family life, or you could be separated and even in a legal trial, and yet you could take part?
Right. And we had this conversation with Pushpika, her coach, and Sean Namal, the national director, right after the pageant, along with Mrs. Marmel. And we had a legal representation in there with us also. And I showed them the national director's contract, and the line in the contract specifically stating that one of the criteria for competing for eligibility to compete at Mrs. World or your state pageant is that you must be legally married. That's it.
So on paper, you need to be married.
What's that?
On paper, you need to be married.
Yes.
On your official documents.
Yes.
Okay.
And every contestant that competed at Mrs. World, that was one of the things they need to provide us with actual documentation of their marriage license. And so we did have that. Pushpika did provide that along with all of the other 41 delegates. We have actual documentation of, and it's notified, it's a certified copy. So we understand that this is still a legal binding marriage.
Brilliant. So there is another story over the fact that the national director is someone who Pushpika is not willing to trust anymore. Now, this is also told on the lines that the national director, together with the mayor of Colombo, influenced the judges in not making her the winner of Mrs. World. Is it true? And what are your opinions on our local national director?
I think that is completely not true for the fact that the judges were never around the main public at all in the Westgate Hotel. Majority of this, the judges were either together at dinners or they were in their room. They were specifically advised not to communicate or mingle with anybody in the hotel besides themselves or Elaine Marmel. So I highly doubt that anything like that happened. And as far as influencing them or Mrs. Rosie influencing the judges, she did not know who the judges were. Nobody knew who the judges were until the day of the interview, which would have been, I believe, Wednesday or Thursday. So there would be no way, because right after the prelims, that interview, 50% of the score was already determined. No outside public had any communication with the judges during the pageant. If they had communication with the judges after the pageant, that was after the fact. But there was never any influence beforehand or anything. As far as Sean Demal, I think he's wonderful. He's been through the ringer, so to speak, last few years, and along with Pushpika, along with Caroline, the organization and everything. And so I think that stands a testament for all of us as human beings of how resilient we can be. And we know what the truth is, and we know how to handle ourselves. And, I think he's done the best that he can with everything that he's been handled. And he's an honorable man. And he's given me no reason to not trust him. And in pageantry, things can be dismayed very easily. And, he hasn't portrayed that at all. So I have no reason to think that he would jeopardize his career, his reputation, Sri Lanka's reputation, to even imply anything like that at all.
Yeah. Just wanted to also speak to you about the fact that in this interview, I'm sure you would have been sent this clip or even translated a few of those segments. It says that Pushpika De Silva has a photograph of the results sheets. Can she actually have it? Do you think she would have got an opportunity to? No way.
No way. There's no way, because as soon as the results are taken, there's two hands that it goes to. It goes from the judge directly to the auditor, from the auditor to Elaine Marmel. That's it.
That's it. All right. Because it's also told that the 5 judges did vote for her. Would we know this for a fact in any way?
Without looking at the official scoring sheets and from our auditor, no. The judges may have voted for her. They did. She was in the top 6.
Yeah. So that means she was in the running, but she was not the winner.
Obviously not. She did not win.
Okay. Now, I also want to know, the controversy that happened in terms of the Mrs. World pageant here. And we had this video where Caroline Jury removed her crown, saying that she's giving up her title as Mrs. World. But when I saw the brochure that was printed by you, and it was photographed and sent to me by the National Director Chandima, it had Caroline's face as the 2019 Mrs. World and 2020 going to a first runner-up. Is this something that we can say that Caroline Jury is still a Mrs. World winner?
I believe because Caroline is a wonderful woman. She's not a girl. She's not a young lady. She's a woman, and she's very smart, and she's very compassionate. And she did do a lot of good with her title. Sri Lanka should be proud of her. We are proud of her to have her as a former Mrs. Sri Lanka World, but also as a former Mrs. World. And I believe that she will always be a Mrs. World, regardless of what anybody tries to say, or if they try to, claim that she is no longer. She officially and legitimately won her crown. And even though she stepped down from that title, we still honor that because she still is a former Mrs. World.
Brilliant. That's actually something that we wanted to clear, considering the fact that it's, as a country, we need to always credit the fact that bringing name and glory in any category, sport, pageant, whatever it is a great thing. So well done to Caroline for still maintaining her place as our 2019 winner, and a kickstart by our mayor itself. So I think Sri Lanka has had a good running.
Very much
Just
so.
want to ask you, after this interview, and you took a look at some of the clips of it, would the organization take legal action or any type of action against Pushpika for demeaning the credibility of this pageant that has been running from 1984?
You know, I'm not really sure about that. I know we've been in discussions with our legal representation, and for right now, we're just trying to assess the situation and see what further needs to happen, if any. But we are definitely just kind of looking at everything from all angles, and we want to do what is right. And of course, you know, we have our honor and integrity to uphold, and that's what we've always prided ourselves upon. So, you know, we want to do what is right, and right now everything, we're just watching everything and taking a look at it. So
Brilliant. Can Pushpika appeal and ask for the judgment to be reanalyzed or something of that nature?
She already has, actually. The day after the pageant, with that meeting with her coach and Shaunamal, she had asked to see the judges' results, and Mrs. Marmel had politely told her that unfortunately that is not going to happen because we do not offer that. And Mrs. Marmel explained to her that it's not on a point system, it's on a mentionable system. She should be proud that she placed in the top 6 because a lot of ladies didn't get to that point. So it really won't affect the outcome. Shaylin Ford, our Mrs. World, won. She's the legitimate winner. She earned her crown from day one. Everybody earned their position that they earned at Mrs. World. So I think that if by Pushpika trying to appeal the decision is not empowering women, was what we like to portray, and what she portrays also, because that almost makes it feel like she's trying to take the crown away from somebody that was legitimately received that award. So
As an organization, I'm sure y'all are very fond of the first winner, and she has made a great name for herself, not only locally but also globally. We're talking about Mrs. Rose Naika. But the claims are fact that she can actually amend the judgment and influence the judges or the organizers in not having another crown, to a point where the interview states that she wants to be the only Mrs. World that Sri Lanka ever produced. Please give me an insight to this statement that has been made.
well, I think that's ridiculous, just because I finally got to meet Rosie, and just everything that she's accomplished in her life to where she is now, I cannot see her being selfish or that powerful, in a sense, that could influence judges in any way to make somebody not win over
In a
another.
negative way.
Yeah, there is no way for that to happen. I believe that since Rosie became the first Mrs. World ever, she has gone above and beyond to help mold other women to follow in her footsteps, because through everything that the Mrs. World organization has given her and what she's been able to accomplish in her life is extraordinary. So why would somebody want to keep that from themselves? And I've seen Mrs. Rosie, and I've researched her and looked at the things that she's done for women all across the world, not just Sri Lanka. She's amazing, and she wants to build them up and give them that same opportunity. I believe she helped Pushpika. I believe she helped Caroline and other former Mrs. Worlds that did come and visit Sri Lanka. So I don't believe that in any sense. She is an amazing and honorable woman, and rather than tear her down and find any faults in anything, people should understand that she is a classy professional woman that is going to support the Mrs. World organization and women and pageantry. And she
Brilliant.
she cannot influence judges. Nobody can influence the judges. The judges have the mind of their own.
Yes, and that's the way it should be done, and that's great. Now, there's another statement made saying that Pushpika received a standing ovation and a personal praise from all judges after the personal interviews were done, saying that she's a great lady. I'm sure this might be a true statement, but is it something that can tally someone's winning?
Right. And so the judges probably did sell her she's a great lady because she is a phenomenal lady. You look at her resume and the things that she's done for Sri Lanka and her charity organization. She has done a tremendous amount of good work for women and the country. So I think it is amazing. And I do believe that the judges probably told her that she's an amazing woman. She's very eloquent. She's very put together, because those are all factual and true. As far as a standing ovation, are you referring to after the pageant or during interviews?
During the personal interview.
I don't believe that happened because each contestant gets 4 minutes with each judge. So
And there's no time for the applause to happen.
Exactly. And if they did do that, then that would show bias on our judges. And then they would single out a certain contestant. And that's not what we would allow. We do have our auditor is in that judge's room. And so she was very strict, very organized, and states that each lady has 4 minutes. Once their 4 minutes are done, they're notified, they can finish their questions, and then the contestant stands up. This contestant stands up and waits for the rest of the judges to finish their notes that they have, and then they go to the next table. So if there was any standing ovation, it would just be by all 5 contestants in the room standing at the same time. But
Amazing.
The judges do not get up.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I also want to ask you, with everything that is happening, there was a time when Sri Lanka was in a country that could actually host the Mrs. World pageant. Would you reconsider that?
Yes. We actually had, yeah, I'll answer that quick.
Considering the fact that we have made highest amount of headlines globally.
Yes, we would love to come to Sri Lanka. So, we actually did have some meetings at the Mrs. World pageant, which this is not uncommon. We have meetings with other international directors that do come and want to host the Mrs. World pageant. And we did have a sit-down meeting with Sean Namal and discuss the possibility of holding Mrs. World again, which I think would be phenomenal. So
that is wonderful.
We are in discussions of that. A date hasn't been, discussed, but it's on the table. So
Amazing.
We would love to.
Because anything that's going to highlight Sri Lanka on a global platform, not only for the amazing things that Sri Lanka has naturally been blessed with, or the warm people, but also we have some brilliant ladies who have represented us so beautifully on many a platform. So I think we need to keep that flag flying high and continue creating a platform for all our ladies to do so. On a personal note, I want to ask you, with all that happened, what was your personal opinion about the controversy and the ugly news that came about after the issues that happened with the crown in Sri Lanka?
Well, to be honest, is I was a little disappointed, just because it's hard to watch other women tear other women down. I was not there. We don't have all the factual information, but it just hurt my heart to see other women not respecting each other. And so, but I knew that regardless of whatever had happened, this is something that we could all overcome and build and become stronger for. It did help us to enlighten more information, to be more clear on our instructions with the international directors, so they know exactly, where the gray area is. But when the bottom line is, it's black and white. There is no gray. It's easy to understand. And throughout all this, especially with Pushpika coming to the United States to compete at Mrs. World, we were hoping that all this difficulty with her representing Sri Lanka would be, in a sense, go by the wayside. But unfortunately, it was a catalyst for a lot of harassment that a lot of the contestants at Mrs. World received during the international competition, from people saying that she should not be there, and just very harassing messages that I received, a lot of international directors and contestants received, that are not warranted. And these are just people that feel that we did not stand by Caroline, or we need to take a stance on injustice and fight for women's rights. And you know, it's a difficult position that we are in, because we don't stand in judgment. And Caroline was the former Mrs. Sri Lanka World. Sean Namal is the director. He knows the legitimacy for those who are eligible, and we rely and trust in that. And he did exactly that. So.
Well, I would like to say thank you so very much for being with us. Just to conclude the interview, I'm just going to give a quick recap of what we discussed.
Okay.
This interview was done specially to create awareness about the latest interview that went viral with our current Mrs. Sri Lanka for Mrs. World, Pushpika De Silva. In this interview, I was speaking to the Vice President and also the pageant coordinator. Thank you so very much for joining us today, Tana. It has been absolutely amazing. I know you have to wake up so early in the morning.
That's okay. I got to go feed cows.
Oh, wow. Okay. I also want to tell you a few things that we have discussed today. So one of my first questions was, is Pushpika in the top 6? Yes, she is. But was she placed at top 4? No, she was not. And also speaking about the crown in terms of our title that Caroline Jury once held, she still goes as Mrs. World 2019, according to even a printed catalogue that I saw. So well done to Caroline for gracing and representing Sri Lanka well on the main stage when you had the chance. Would also like to say Pushpika has been someone who has had great potential, according to pageant coordinator here. She said she looked fabulous, she carried herself really well, but unfortunately these type of conversation can only create unwanted negative energy, and it's not needed. The accusations that have been told about Rosie Serenaika and Chandimal over the fact that they will have any type of influence over the judges is false. And Rosie Serenaika's travel to USA was a travel that was sponsored by the Mrs. World organization. She was hosted by them, she was given the hotel stay by them, and she had returned back to Sri Lanka. Right. Now, I would like to say thank you so very much for clearing the air and for giving us an insight to it. And we can't wait to send more brilliant contestants from here to represent our beautiful country on a big platform.
Absolutely. We love Sri Lanka, and just the beauty, not just on the outside, but the inside is just, it just resonates, you know, warmth.
Yes, amazing. Thank you so very much. I really hope you'll come and enjoy our sun-kissed island a little bit and speak about us wherever you go.
Yes. All right. Thanks, Danu.
Brilliant.
I appreciate
Thank you so very much, and have yourself a good day.
Yes, I will. Take care.
Yes. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
So you just need to, you know how to exit out of this? Yes, there you go. So I really hope this was actually an insight to all the questions that you might have had in terms of Mrs. World pageant. I must say, the conclusion is, so the professionalism that the pageant maintains is something that's remarkable. They still see the value of our contestant that we sent and how well she carried herself and also promoted Sri Lanka. And also the fact that we have 2 title holders on the international platform is definitely something for us to be proud about. Thank you so very much for all those who gave us the positive, negative, rude, all types of comments. It's always welcome. Thank you so very much for joining us, and I really hope this gave an insight to everything. Have yourself a wonderful evening, and thank you for being a part of Daily Mirror.